Okay, so now about tonight's program. When we first began to talk about having a panel related to women's issues, we naturally thought of doing something about the history of women in photography. And although this is a good topic, we wanted to take a thoughtful, provocative, and controversial angle. And we also wanted to challenge the idea that panel discussions are boring. So the topic of tonight's panel came to be the role, I'm giving you a little pressure here, the role of women in photography. Are we there yet? So we started by looking for a moderator, and we're extremely pleased when Elizabeth Biondi accepted our offer. Elizabeth, as you can see from her bio, is a well-known and respected photography editor. In her last position, she was visuals editor of The New Yorker, and she held this position for 15 years. And now she is pursuing a career as an independent curator. And most recently, she was a juror for the Slow Exposure Festival and curator of an exhibition at the Howard Greenberg Gallery called Beyond Words, Photography in The New Yorker, and it's there now through October 22nd. But more than her paper credentials, Elizabeth is a woman with high standards and an obvious love of photography. I was personally pleased to work with her on the development of this panel and would be honored to be able to work with her again. Now, before I introduce Elizabeth, who in turn will introduce each of the panelists, let me take a minute to thank the panelists for coming tonight. Each of them is an expert in their field, and we are privileged to have them all together in one room. Thank you. Please note that at the end of the panel, we are going to be taking questions. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Elizabeth Biondi and the panel.
Hello, everyone. I think what I'm going to do is first introduce my panelists here. They're not mine, but the panelists. And what is amazing is that we have these multi-talented people sitting here. And they come from different disciplines, and they themselves work in various disciplines. So here we have Lyle Rexer. He is a writer of articles and books and has written for most of the well-known publications that deal with photography or have the photography reviews. His books I have to actually read from here. Edge of Vision, Outsider Art, Photography's Antiquarian Avant-Garde. Is that it?
Yep.
The New World, yeah. And I think he's known for his essays on photography. And most recently, he was a curator as well. And the show was called The Edge of Vision. And he's also a teacher at SVA. And next, I'm going to just you're lined up like
bowling pins.
Chicken on a perch. Martine Fougeron had a full career in France. She was a creative director for a company called Perfumery, was that called? And she decided to live in the States and started a career in photography. And amazingly, in a very short period of time, she's done some wonderful projects. And her best known project is Tête à Tête, where she, I would say documented, but it's probably more than documentation of her two sons through their teenage years. And you've seen some of the pictures up there. And she was also, had the pleasure to work with her at The New Yorker. She was one of the, we called it GOAT, Going On Town photographers, and contributed regularly to it. Have I forgotten something? Okay. And Lisa is also very well known to me. She's done quite a number of assignments for us, both in the Going On Town, or GOAT part of the magazine. She has photography, I never know book titles, so I have to look those up. She has books to her credit, Fun and Game, Fun and Games. And Fantasies, that was a book about striptease. That would come in handy tonight. Not the striptease, but the discussion of it. Okay, and her work is in the Whitney Museum, in the Brooklyn Museum, and the New Museum. And last but not least, she is a teacher at Yale School, at Yale, and the director, not Yale School, director of undergraduate studies in photography. And then we come to Sarah. Sarah I don't know very well, but I've looked at her pictures and they're wonderful. And she has a very impressive career in what we call commercial photography and editorial photography. And I think you've seen her photographs up here. And I thought it was interesting when I read your little bio that you liked dance, you both studied dance and photography, and then somehow combined the two, and it is reflected in your work. And she's worked for, well, the who's who of big companies, and same with magazines, Italian Vogue, and so on. And then last but not least, Vince, who I also know very well because he is the critic for the New Yorker, and I always call him the master of the short critic piece. It's absolutely amazing how in a few sentences he comes to the point and explains exactly why a show is interesting to see, and it's wonderfully written. It's perfection. But originally, I knew him from when he was at the Village Voice, when the Voice was the voice that I loved. So he was in charge of the photography reviews, right? You were a critic. And he also curates quite a few shows, most recently at ICP. It was, right now you have a show up at ICP. What's the title of it?
Harper's Bazaar, A Decade in Style.
And let me just see what the other title of the other shows were. It was fashion photography, right? The year of fashion and weird beauty.
And Avedon.
And Avedon, right. No less. And he won the Infinity Award for Critical Writing in 2005. Then what else? That's quite enough.